بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. So class 9, ayah 21 and 22 is what we're up to in Sورة البقرة. So it starts off with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. So the translation of that is, O mankind, worship your Lord who created you and those before you so that you may guard yourselves against evil, who has spread out the earth as a resting place for you and has made heaven as a canopy and has sent down water from heaven wherewith he brings forth fruits for your sustenance, so do not set up rivals with Allah while you know. Now these specific type of verses, well at least for me, maybe it's different for you guys, but these are the type of verses that you kind of read and you skim over and then you go to the next one. You don't really contemplate too much about it because it seems like it's something oft repeated. It's repeated, it regurgitated a lot in the Quran, even though it's not. There's a lot of precision in this ayah, and every ayah has its own sort of miracle, and that's why it's called an ayah. Now, we'll go through it slowly, so if you click next. So for the first ayah, now this is basically the summary of the past 19 or 20 ayahs that we did. So I know I've done this before, but just really quick summary, since this is the summary. There's three groups of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about. The first is the muttaqeen, or the pious, or the God-fearing, or whatever it may be that you want to translate it as. The second is the kafirin, or can you guys see red? Should I change the color? Okay, I got one person saying no, so I have an obligation to change that. So the mushrikeen, or the muttaqeen, or the pious, the kafirin, or the disbelievers, and the munafiqeen / hypocrites, okay? They're the three groups. Allah has grouped people into those three, okay? So, and we might actually fluctuate between. Those are the three standards. We might fluctuate in between. People on this earth might fluctuate in between. Now, the first group, the muttaqeen, or the pious, they're the ones that have, the Quran is their guidance, is their nur, is their, hidayah. They're the ones that believe in Allah, they believe in the unseen, they establish prayer, they give charity, they believe in what was come before them, and so on and so forth. So this is, good. You give it a big tick. The kafirin, or the disbelievers, they're the ones that have a seal over their hearts. A seal over their hearts, over their ears, and on their eyes is a veil. Isn't there a wrestler that does this move?
Yeah, John Cena.
John Cena. Sorry. And yeah, basically there's a seal over their hearts. They're the type of people that whether you warn them or you don't warn them, they'll be the same. It doesn't make a difference. You do whatever you want to them, they're not going to listen to you. So if you leave them, it's going to be the same thing. Their heart is sealed because of their deeds, because of their actions, because of their arrogance. Okay? And the final one is the mushrikeen, the munafiqeen, and the hypocrites, or the hypocrites. Okay? Now they're the ones that have a disease in their hearts, and because of their disbelief, that disease continues to grow. Okay? Because of their own actions and rejection. They're the three groups that we talked about. Now, then Allah summarizes everything. And the first thing He says is, Ya ayyuhan nas. Now, Brother Dawood was just talking about this, subhanAllah. He was just talking about this. He says, usually we address a group of people, and rarely we address everyone. And it's hard to address everyone, isn't it? Because everyone has their own mindset, their own culture. And if you say the same thing to one person, he might understand it differently to what another person understands it as. You know, this culture clash is a big deal. And you'll notice if you do something in Australia and then you go to Iraq or Iran and you do the same thing, there's a big culture shock. The amount of times I was rude to my family members when I visited them, and I didn't even know, I didn't even realise. Okay? Those who have been overseas and have been brought up all their lives in Australia would know what I'm talking about. But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses all of mankind. He doesn't just address the believers. Remember, the Quran we said is a guidance for the muttaqeen. Because the muttaqeen are the ones that accept it as a guidance. Yet, the Quran is addressed to everyone. Everyone, the whole world. Now, how many times do you think Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nas? How many times do you think He addresses all of mankind? Sorry? How many? Someone say something? Okay, I'll tell you. Fine. It's so boring. 20 times. Okay? Only 20 times. And it's important that Allah has only addressed it 20 times. Probably if we try to think of those 20 times, we won't know. But it's something that Allah says to all people. And it's fascinating that He doesn't say it 100 times. As soon as you say something a lot, it loses value, doesn't it? So here Allah only says it 20 times. So for those people that, haven't accepted Islam, and they say, what does the Quran say? Look at those ayahs, because it's addressing everyone, okay? Don't get in the ayahs, Ya ayyuhal kafirun. Not at the start anyway. So, Allah addresses all of mankind 20 times with Ya ayyuhan nas. And in this one He starts with Ya ayyuhan nas. O mankind, worship your Lord that has created you and has created those before you so that you become a muttaqi, one of the muttaqin, one of the first group. Okay? Now, the first thing is worship. Now, this word, a'budu. The first time we came across this word or a similar word was in Surah Al-Fatiha. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. And we spoke extensively of what this a'budu means. We talked about the relationship between Allah. We are the abd and Allah is the Rabb. Okay? Allah is the Lord, He's the Master. And we are the slave, the servant. And we'll talk a bit about that relationship a bit later. I don't want to go too much into that. But that relation is complete submission. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you submit to it. It's not the picking and choosing type. Your boss at work sometimes might tell you to do something, and you go do something else. Okay? And it might turn out alright. It might be better than what he expected, and he'll say, good job, Talib. I like the way you laid those bricks. Okay? But with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He'll tell you something, and you don't say, you know what, Allah, I think I know a bit better than you. Okay? And this is why Allah says about the muttaqeen, they believe in what came down to you from Rasulullah and what came before you. They don't pick and choose. Like, for example, some of the Jews of Bani Israel, they liked this prophet, they didn't like this prophet. And with their hands, there were many prophets killed. Okay? Because they didn't like what they came with. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, when he came, they didn't like him at all because he was from another tribe and so on and so forth. Now I don't want to digress too much. So what he says, what Allah says is, O mankind, worship your Lord that has created you. Now as I was listening to unfortunately I think she's left, as I was listening to Sister Maryam's talk, I started thinking and contemplating. Allah here says, if you want to be one of the muttaqeen, worship me. But He says, alongside worship, He says, worship the one that created you. If there's any reason that you should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's because He created you. That's the first reason that you should worship Allah. And Allah says, مَا خَلَقْتَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسِ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create man or jinn except that they should worship me. This is the reason of our existence. This is the way that we reach perfection. This is the way we return home to Jannah, worshipping. Now, this is the first sign that we all have to contemplate on. Creation. Too often, what happens is we're distracted in life, isn't it? Brother David or Dawood gave many examples of how we get distracted by things. That person that was against the government and against war and against so on and so forth, when he saw that shiny, curvy, aerodynamic, impressive jet fighter or whatever it was, he was dazzled by it. And this is how the dunya is with the akhirah. You forget your purpose, you forget your motive, you forget your desires, your passions for reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you see something sparkling and you get distracted. And this is the purpose of Hajj, by the way. One of the biggest purposes of Ihram is so that you get grounded again. You remember your roots. And this is why when Sister Miriam was talking about it, and she would say, for example, why do we look at the mirror? And the same reason popped into my head, and I've asked sheikhs before about this, and they also gave me similar reason. It's to stop the vanity that we have. We think too much about how do I look? How am I presenting myself to the people? Am I attractive? Do I look good enough? Am I wearing the right things? Is my pimple concealed? Is my hair combed properly? You know, when I was younger, I used to put a lot of hair products, yeah? And you can probably tell because I'm going a bit receding hairline and everything. Don't use gel, guys. When you start becoming so enthralled by and distracted by your image, even one single hair out of place becomes annoying. Believe me, one single hair becomes, mess up your head there. One single hair becomes annoying, you know. If you get a pimple, you're like, oh my god, you start searching on the internet, oh okay, go put on toothpaste on your pimples, so you know, all sorts of things, just so you can look, you know, a little bit better than you did yesterday, just in case so-and-so sees me, or so, you know, I need to look good. I need to look good. But here in Hajj, when we go Hajj, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? For 1 week or whatever it is that you're in Ihram, don't look at yourself. In fact, it's haram to look at yourself intentionally. And if you look at yourself intentionally, a certain amount of times, you have to give money to charity. You have to give sadaqah, kafar. That's the extent. Or for example, we're so, you know, when it comes to religion, sometimes we get to a point where our whole religion revolves around debating. Our whole religion revolves around proving this guy's wrong and I'm right. But in Hajj, debating or jidal or arguments is a no-no. You can't do that. We start forgetting the reason, you know, the glory of the name of Allah. This sacred name that represents the essence of Allah, we start using it willy-nilly for our own desires, for our vain desires. You know, Wallah, I did this. Wallah, he said that. Wallah becomes part of our vocabulary that we don't even mean to make a nidr or an oath by the name of Allah. It just becomes part of our vocabulary because it's cool, isn't it? Or because it's part of our culture. But in Hajj, what happens? You say Wallah 1, 2, 3 times, you gotta pay. You can't even say Wallah. This is all to ground you. Remember your purpose. Remember the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, sometimes when we're walking across the street, we don't see the amazing creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're just walking or in the car, driving. But here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Hajj, be careful where you step. Because you can't even kill an ant. You can't kill a plant. Notice every single detail while you're at Hajj. What else? There's so many examples, but I can't think of any now. This was just thought about on the spot. But when we go to Hajj, it's to remember and reflect. We're so busy in this life. What are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing next week? When is FIFA 16 coming out? 24th of September, by the way. You know, the things that we're thinking about, we don't have time to sit and contemplate. الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم يتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. Surah Ali Imran, ayah 191. This is one of my favorite ayahs. The first time I heard it was, first time I paid attention was when, if some of you guys know Qari Jaweed, he said it at camp with such passion. And it just got me. And I started thinking about it. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about those who will be victorious, that will attain paradise, the muttaqeen. They are those that remember Allah standing and sitting, and while they're lying up on their sides, and they contemplate and they think about the creations of the heavens and the earth, and they say, Ya Allah, you did not create this world in vain. There is a purpose and reason for absolutely everything. Subhanaka, glory be to you, so save us from the hellfire. فَقِنَا عَذَابِ النَّارِ. This is something you guys probably all repeat when you are in Qanut. Save us from the hellfire. This is the muttaqeen. Those that are thinking and contemplating about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether they're standing, whether they're sitting, whether they're lying upon their sides, meaning at every moment they're contemplating about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we go back to the original ayah. It says, O mankind, worship your Lord that has created you and created the ones before you. Okay? Now, if we go to the next slide, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Okay? So that you may become God conscious. Because what is God conscious? What is the muttaqeen? Those that are thinking about their akhirah, those that are thinking about Allah, those that are thinking about their sins and what it's going to lead to all the time. And if you're not thinking about Allah and your purpose, your creation, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We came from Allah, He created us, and we're going to return to Him. If you want to be one of the muttaqeen, you have to be thinking about this constantly. And I said the story when I was doing tafsir Surah Al-Fatiha. Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, when he reached the ayah, when he was reading the Quran, and he reached the ayah, Maliki Yawmiddin, he would say it so much, people would sit outside his house to hear his beautiful voice. When he reached Maliki Yawmiddin, he would continue saying it over and over and over and over again until he faints. Crying, emotional, exhausted from saying it so many times. They ask him, why do you say it so many times? Because I'm thinking about the day of judgment, and He is my master, and everything that I do, I'm going to return to Him and tell Him about my deeds. This is the muttaqin. الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. So, here Allah doesn't just say the one that created you, but the one that also came before you. Why does Allah say, why does He emphasize that He didn't just create you guys, but the ones that came before you? And He doesn't say, and the ones that come after you. He specifically mentioned the ones that came before you. Remember, at the time of the Prophet, and even till today, especially, I was thinking about this when Brother Dawood was talking about it, especially today and the time of the prophets, what religion did people follow? What religion did people follow? No, I don't mean that. You're right. But they followed the religion of their fathers. Ahsan. They followed the religions of their fathers. And probably, I'm not saying it's wrong, because you probably have studied and whatnot, but perhaps, I know Brother Dawood isn't, but perhaps all of us also in here are following the religions of who? Our fathers. And a majority of Muslims, I'm going to make a bold statement, a majority of Muslims are geographical Muslims. Geographical Muslims in the sense that because they were born in a certain place, they are Muslims. Not that they think that this is the truth and they have explored it with full yaqeen, with full certainty. but because my father is... And you see people defend their religion or certain figures simply because this is what they believe. And the reason why they believe it is because of their fathers. It was handed down to them on a plate. Now, what we need to strive to do is to believe in everything in Islam for the sake of the truth. Not because of our fathers and this is pride and whatnot and how can I let my family down and I can't change religion and whatever. Some people say, I know this is the truth but I can't convert. Have you heard some people say that? This is the truth but I can't do it. My mum will kill me. Just do taqiyya. No, okay. I need a drink of water, so please صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الثاني على حب الزهراء.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on into the next ayah and he says, الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا. Okay? He who has spread out the earth as a resting place. So it's kind of like a mount. If on a small scale, it's like us riding a horse. Something comfortable for us. But it's on a much bigger scale, isn't it? And you have to keep in mind that the world, the earth is constantly rotating, but we don't feel it. It's constantly in movement, but we don't feel it. It's round even. If you get a ball and you try to place something underneath without sticky tape or blue tack, what's going to happen? It's going to fall. If you try to balance a pin on a ball from underneath, you're never going to be able to do it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created this system, this earth, with such precision that it's round, it's constantly moving, but we don't feel it at all. With the system of gravity and whatnot. I'm not a scientist. I hated science when I was younger, so I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. Okay? And now, the word firash. In Arabic, I don't know if it's Iraqi or every language, but when you say firash, what does it mean? Mattress or bed? Huh? Farsha. Okay, so similar. It's the same kind of word. Now, just imagine your bed. In fact, not now. Imagine your bed at 5:28 a.m. in the morning. Isn't it the most comfortable thing in the world? Especially when your alarm is ringing. It's the most comfortable thing in the world. In fact, you can't think of anything more that you want but to stay in there. Because not only is it a resting place, but you feel calm, tranquil. That's why you need an alarm that's really loud and annoying. They say on the internet, I've seen the pictures and stuff, they say don't put your favorite song as your alarm, because you'll end up hating it. So you need something that's really annoying, yeah? To wake you up, because you're in a state of tranquility. You're very calm, you're enjoying yourself. And not only that, if you look in the lexicons and look at the meaning of firash, it also means warmth and moderate temperature. Especially in this time in winter, I think we're in spring now, but winter, at 5:28 a.m. in the morning, that warmth is amazing. But you know what happens? As soon as you take off the covers and you go, you do wudu, you pray, you come back, and you go in, it's not that temperature anymore. That's the worst. Anyway, but this is this is the earth. Allah describes it as firash, a firash. It's a resting place for us of comfort and warmth. He created it specifically and exclusively for us that we can be comfortable. Okay? So if we can go next. Now, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, this is in Tafsir Nur al-Thaqalain. He says, Imam Sajjad says, Allah has arranged the earth and adapted to your nature and appropriated for your bodies. He made it neither very hot so that it roasts you, nor very cold that it freezes you. He made it neither too aromatic, so much so that the odor hurts your brains, nor too foul-smelling to cause your death. He planned it neither too soft so that you be drowned in it, like in water, nor too rigid and stable to enable you to build houses and make graves and to bury corpses of your men, which cause many disasters when they remain unburied. Yes, it is for this reason that he has spread the earth like a resting place for you. It's perfect. It's perfect. This is Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. This is the words of Imam al-Sajjad. You know, and what they say, again, I'm not a scientist, this is what I heard, but they say, you know, if the earth was, I don't know, millimeters, centimeters closer to the sun, would burn. I don't know, this is what they say. Maybe someone who knows about this stuff can verify or tell me that I'm talking rubbish. And if it's a few millimeters or centimeters or further away from the sun, what happens? We'll freeze to death.
3 millimeters.
Sorry, Talib. 3 millimeters. This is the precision and this is a mercy, by the way. This is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
I've got about 10 minutes left, so I need to slightly speed it up. وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً. So in Surah Al-Shams we have وَالسَّمَاءَ وَمَا بِنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضَ وَمَا طَحَاهَا. And by the sky, and he who constructed it, and by the earth, and he who spread it. That's in Surah Al-Shams, okay? Similar to what's in this ayah, in ayah 22 of Surah Al-Baqarah. And the earth, and he who benaha. Benaha can mean, for example, constructed, or put in a certain place through construction. You know, when we say benaha in layman terms, it means, you know, to construct. Benaya, what's benaya? A building. So Allah says that this is like the sky is something that's constructed, so made, built to perfection, and He did it. It's not just anyone, not just any engineer that graduated from Monash University. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No engineer can do something like this. Right? And then further than that, in Surah Ayah 21, Surah Al-Anbiya, Ayah 32, He says, and we made the sky a protected ceiling, but they from its signs are turning away. This construction, this building, this sky is something that's protecting us. It's something that's protecting us. If you go next, something called the Ptolemaic theory. Again,
Don't pronounce the P, it's only Ptolemaic.
Ptolemaic theory. Now, again, I have no idea what this is about. And I'm not going to pretend like I know. If you want to read about it, read about it. This is actually, this was discussed in the Tafsir. For example, this was in Tafsir, the enlightened commentary into the Quran. Okay? And I believe it's in Tafsir al-Amthal of Nasir Makarim al-Shirazi also. They discussed this. Basically, they are planets. Planets are set over each other in the sky like layers of an onion. That's how it's described, as an onion. Remember how I said the Quran has layers like an onion? You know, the Zahir, the Batin of the Batin, up to 7 or 70 layers. The Tafsir has many meanings. It's not just an apparent meaning. You know, some of our Muslim brothers, they only take one particular apparent meaning of the Quran without looking at it in the whole context of things, without looking at the deeper meanings of it, and that's it, khalas. But the Imam and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, no, this is not the case. Now again, for example, they say, as-samawat as-sabah. The 7 heavens sometimes is translated, or 7 skies is translated as. Yeah? And it's like layers. Now again, this is described in the actual ayahs. It's described very precisely, but I'm not going to go into it. It's if you want to learn about it, search not Ptolemaic. Okay? Now, this is a hadith, I don't have much time. If we go next. Okay, and he ends it with Anzala min as-sama' ma'an, or ma'. So and He sent down water from the heaven. And now we know that water is the lifeline of everything. In the Quran He says, and Allah created every living creature from water. Now, I'm especially one of them. When it starts raining, I don't like the rain. You can't play soccer. You know, your pants get wet.
Soccer's the best in the rain, man.
Is it?
Yeah.
Depends what type. You probably slide around a lot, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, defender, there we go. I like to dribble, so... Khalid likes the rain because, as a bricklayer, when it rains, you get to go home. So he understands the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, rain is a blessing, okay? And Allah says it is a blessing. In a hadith and in the Quran, He says it's sent down. Why? If you go next. Allah, and this is Imam al-Sajjad again, this is in the same hadith. He says, Allah sent down rain from the sky to water the peaks of mountains and hills, ditches, and on the whole, all sides, high or low, saturating them completely. He planned for it to rain continually and gently, with raindrops being individual and separated from each other, sometimes in the form of drizzle or mist-like, and sometimes in the form of rainfall, in order to let it go down in the soil and saturate. He did not let it fall as a flood, which would wash away and destroy lands, trees, fields, and fruits. Now, how many times do we actually look at the rain and think about every single individual raindrop? There's an amazing hadith from Imam al-Askari that's coming up. But every single raindrop is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single one. I have never thought about that, by the way. Even when I think about the blessings of rain, I think about it as a whole. It's raining, and the whole system of rain is good for us because the fruits and plants can grow. But even the type of rain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He plans for it. Even the type of rain, whether it's drizzle, heavy, soft, and we'll keep going. And where He brings forth fruits for your sustenance. فَأَخْرَجْ بِهِ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ رِزْقًا لَكُمْ. Now this is again mercy. This talks about the mercy of Allah. Fruits. You know, if you like your fruits, then you're going to have to like rain. But it's also power. It shows that through water, something that's a clear substance, it's the lifeline for a banana, or a tomato, or an eggplant. And then He goes on and He ends it with فَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. And do not set up rivals with Allah while you know. Now, Allah said, so in summary, this is what Allah said in this ayah. He said that, O people, worship Allah who created you and created the ones before you so that you can be pious. The one, remind me what it says. The one who created you and the ones before you so that you become pious. The next one. What is the next ayah? Come on guys. I can't do all the thinking here. Ahsan. And He made the earth widespread for you so that it can be a resting place. And He sent down and He made the skies like a ceiling for you, a protection for you. Look at the way that He's talking about this. He first starts off about creating you and creation. And then He talks about the floor, the bed for comfort, and we're lying on it. And then He talks about how He protects you with a ceiling.
Ozone layer and the carbon dioxide and stuff that we'd be scorched to death without.
Perfect. This is who you should be talking to understand the Ptolemaic theory. He made this thing as a protection for you, the sky as a protection for you. And then from that protection, what does He send down? Blessings and mercy, so that it falls onto that ground, that bed that He's made comfortable for you, so that you can have your lifeline, your food, your water. Look at the system that He's created. And He said, by the end of it, now that you know this, and you all know this, O mankind, don't set up rivals with me. Don't do shirk. That's all it needs. Just talk about this and you'll understand that Allah can have no rival. You don't need to go into the deep philosophy of Tawheed and all this sort of stuff, Wahdatul Wujud and whatnot. You don't need to go into that. That's enough to say that Allah has no partners. He has no partners. These idols that we make, the stone idols, what can they do? Have they created anything? Do they provide you with rizq? With Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, radiallahu anh, one of the companions, he was so amazed at their stupidity that they would come and put a glass of milk in front of the idols and they say, come on, let's go on an expedition. We gave him milk, he's going to protect us. Abu Dhar al-Ghafari would go and hide in the bushes. And he says, I want to see what they're thinking. Do they really think that the milk is going to be drunk by because they come back and they say, hey look, the idol drank the milk. He's too shy to drink in front of us. So, but he's drinking it, so it must be working and we're back and we're protected. Salawat. I was trying to think of what they would say, but... Right? And so Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, one time he said, okay, let me see what's going to happen. He sits there, and they're gone. And then all of a sudden, from another bush, a fox comes out. Comes and drinks the milk. And then, what happens when something drinks a lot? Ahsan, needs to go, flush it out. So it lifts its leg on the idol and lets it go. Now Abu Dhar al-Ghafari, radiallahu anh, he's looking, he's like, subhanallah, these people are worshipping this, that it can't even protect itself from the urine of a fox, subhanallah. And this is, this became one of the greatest companions of Rasulullah and Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhim al-afdal as-salatu was-salam. So Allah says, you know this, so don't set up rivals with me. And these idols, by the way, it's not just limited to the stone ones, the physical ones of the time of the Prophet. We talked about this. The idols of today, for us, the Hollywood industry, Illuminati and all these theories. Okay, that too, put that aside. The number one idol for us at the moment is what? You said it before? Our ego, our nafs. Whatever we desire in this dunya, without thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever we desire is like an idol in our hearts that we can't shatter, we can't break. And we follow it so loyally, the way that we should follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, isn't it? And Allah says, have you seen the one, in the Quran He says, have you seen the one that takes his desires as his God? Think about what your desire is. This Hajj, even if you're not going to be there, find out what your Nabi Ismail is, alayhi salam. Find out what your thing that you're so attached to in this dunya, and try cut it off from your life. Just give it a shot. One thing that you're attached to in this dunya, and cut it off, and see what happens. Inshallah, this will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you go next, I've only got 1 or 2 minutes left. Just about worship, Allah says, worship Allah who created you. Just a couple of hadiths about worship that I found that I thought I would share. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam said, the best form of worship is persistence in the pondering regarding Allah and the high and His power, the mighty and majestic. The best form of worship is to think about the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Imam al-Rida alayhi salam said, the worship is not the high frequency of salah and fast, but rather the worship is the pondering regarding the matter of Allah, mighty and majestic. It's not about how much you fast and pray. It's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. What's in your heart? Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, somebody came up to him and said, listen to this guy's recitation at night. They were walking past. They said, listen to this guy's recitation. SubhanAllah, it's amazing, and he's staying up the whole night. He must be such a good believer. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he knew who he was. The guy turned out to be a Khawarij later. He became one who was fighting against Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, don't be fooled by their voices. Don't be fooled by people's voices. For some people, it doesn't even come out from their throats. But the one who sleeps with firm faith is better than the one that stands up in worship, but is doing it for reasons other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have firm faith, establish that in your heart, and think about, contemplate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لعلكم تتقون, so that you can become one of the muttaqin, pious. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam said worship, this is a famous hadith, I'll end it with this, everyone knows this hadith, but it's something to contemplate on and it's good to remind. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says worship is of three types. The worship of people who worship Allah out of fear, purely out of fear. The only reason that you don't do certain things is because you don't want to be punished. That's it. And he said that worship is that of a slave. And the worship of the people who worship Allah to seek rewards, he only wants it for paradise, you know, for the wine and the rivers flowing underneath and the 72 grapes. And then that's the worship of a business people. And the worship of people who worship Allah out of love for Him. That is the worship of the free people. And this is the best of worship. How many of us worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala simply because He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I know I just made a joke about the grapes thing. Actually, I'm not going to go into it. Nah, I better not. Okay, so that worship for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exclusively, just because He deserves to be worshipped, because He created you and He made this earth a bed for you and protected you with the skies and gave you rizq from the sama, so that sustenance for you can grow from the ground. Worship Allah for that reason. That's the best form of worship. I'm not saying the other forms of worship is not good. It's good. It's good. Worship Allah out of fear for Him and out of, the rewards. But imagine worshiping Allah of a free man. صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.